It was at a private dinner in April 2007, attended by the former Emir of Qatar, Hamad bin Khalifa, his country's then most senior football figure, Mohammed bin Hammam, and Sepp Blatter, then FIFA president, that a World Cup finals in the tiny Gulf state was first proposed. According to the accounts of that evening, it was Blatter's idea. Once it had taken seed in the mind of the Emir, it was unstoppable. For bin Hammam, a Qatari construction billionaire who truly knew football, first as a boy who played the game, then later manager, club owner, Qatar Association president, and FIFA Executive Committee member, it became an obsession and a curse. He had no choice but to follow the wishes of the absolute monarch whom he served. In 2012, Qatar won the right to host the FIFA World Cup in 2022, and the government got straight to work trying to make that event the best thing that happened to Qatar since the finding of oil. But in the past 10 years, the enormous work that it's taken to get the country ready has been, let's say, anything but ethic. 6,500 migrant workers have been worked to death in the country since the construction first began in 2012. Most of them die in such brutal conditions that their bodies can't even be returned to their home countries. That is, if they're even found. Many migrant workers go to Qatar to work on the infrastructure for the World Cup, but they're never heard from again. In this video, we're going to be digging deeper into the Qatar 2022 World Cup, which might just be the most evil event in all of history. In 2012, the then Emir of Qatar, Hassan al-Thawadi, managed to convince the FIFA Association that the FIFA 2022 World Cup should be held there. Even though major players like the US and Australia were in the running too, it was the Emir that won the contract. The decision immediately caused commotion throughout the world, with people like Barack Obama standing up against it. He openly said that the decision to hold the World Cup in Qatar was a great mistake, and others joined in saying the same thing too. But at the time, those voices were ignored. It was later found that 2 out of the 24 members in the FIFA committee were fired after it was uncovered that they had taken money to change their vote. Those were just the ones who were found to be corrupt. Chances are that all of the swing vote members were paid off. That wouldn't be too surprising because the richest families in Qatar, and the Arab world in general, have used their money to get their way in the world for decades. Some people would be swayed by money. Others might just be swayed by their influence. They'll use any means to get their way, and it seems like that's exactly what happened here. In 2020, an indictment was filed in the United States against several officials who were accused of receiving payments to support Qatar's bid to host the FIFA World Cup. Qatar denies any wrongdoing and says it did not pay anyone for the hosting rights. FIFA says that holding the World Cup in Qatar is consistent with its goal of expanding soccer into new regions. It was the first glimpse into the reality that just because Qatar has had basically unlimited amounts of money to throw at every problem, they can do anything to make things go their way. Something that we'd think wouldn't be that major of a problem in the world in 2022, but it ended up taking lives and treating literal human beings like they were replaceable machines. 2012 marked the start of the uprising of Qatar, even if it meant they'd have to crush thousands of people along the way. Let's dig deeper. Sports washing refers to a state's use of international sports to clean its public image. Cleaning implies the laundering state has a blemished record that is impeding its interests, so it invests in sports to distract target audiences from its faults. Qatar's list of blemishes is long, from its domestic limitations on political rights and civil liberties to its international links to extremist groups. By hitching its brand to sports, Qatar hopes to influence the infospheres of its audiences, tilting the balance of coverage about it from negative to positive. Playing host to the World Cup, then, is a demonstration of Qatari sharp power, the authoritarian toolkit applied to the beautiful game. In the years since Qatar won its bid to host the FIFA World Cup in 2022, an average of 12 migrant workers from South Asian nations have died each week. Most of these deaths are due to working conditions that are often dangerous and exploitative. Many of the migrant workers who come to Qatar do so in the hope of finding well-paid work that will allow them to support their families back home. However, they often end up working long hours in hazardous conditions for little pay. In some cases, they're not even given proper food or shelter. The Qatari government has been criticized for not doing enough to protect the rights of migrant workers. Human rights groups have called on the government to improve working conditions and to ensure that workers are paid fairly. But all they've heard is silence. The plight of migrant workers in Qatar is a tragic reminder of the downside of globalization. While the FIFA World Cup may bring some benefits to the country, it's also causing immense suffering for those who are helping to build it. Workers are being shipped in from countries like India, Pakistan, Nepal, and Bangladesh, and as they work on the infrastructure for the World Cup, they wither away in weeks. Those people that come into Qatar perfectly healthy die a horrible, painful death. Even those that survive find themselves stuck in an evil wheel of modern-day slavery, one they can't break out of. The World Cup preparations have shone a light on the Gulf region's kafala, or sponsorship system, under which laborers require their employer's permission to switch jobs, return home, or even open a bank account. In 2019, the United Nations assailed Qatar for racial discrimination, saying a worker's nationality played an overwhelming role in how they are treated. The kafala system has been criticized by human rights organizations for years as it effectively traps workers in abusive situations. And while the Qatari government claims that they're going to start using minimum wage and dismantling the kafala system, no real action has been taken so far. Even though the FIFA World Cup is going to be great for the economy of Qatar and will bring people from all over the world to the Middle East, the entire thing is meant to entertain. Do people really have to die horrible deaths where they're plagued by unbearable working conditions, no proper food or water, and still left without money or their passports to return home? These workers get sick and die, and most of their bodies aren't even returned to their home countries. All for just another sporting event? It seems like something that couldn't happen in 2022. But not only is it happening, but there's proof, and yet no one's doing anything about it. And the most evil event in history is continuing on, and will likely go on without a hitch, while the people making it all happen die in the background of it all.